Have you ever paused in the middle of the rush, looked at a schedule so busy it squeezes your breath, and asked yourself, am I truly living or just existing? We check off tasks, sit through meetings, scroll endless streams of news, but deep inside, an emptiness quietly grows. It's a familiar anxiety, the sense that life is slipping through your fingers. Big dreams, someday plans. The day we'll write that book, learn that skill, mend that relationship, but someday seems to never arrive. Often, this isn't procrastination on tasks. This is procrastinating on your life. We all feel it, the persistent whisper, and sometimes a loud scream from within, a command, stop, waste your life. But how? If all the time management apps and productivity advice can't fill the void, then maybe the root of the problem isn't how we manage our time. Maybe it's how we manage ourselves. What if the blockage, the delay, and the feeling of wasting your life aren't signs of laziness or failure, but a message from the deepest, most forgotten part of your mind? This is the central question we'll answer today. What do we need to truly stop wasting our lives? The answer isn't found in surface-level technical tricks, but in the profound wisdom of Carl Jung. That whisper, the restlessness and the emptiness, is exactly the mind of today's exploration. We often confuse a wasted life with doing nothing, with laziness or killing time. But that definition is too quick. Wasting your life, in psychological depth, is a far more subtle tragedy. It is a passive way of living, letting invisible fears and old habits automatically steer the ship of your life while your conscious mind can only helplessly follow. And the root of this passivity, according to Carl Jung, is the supportive fat connection between the conscious and the unconscious. Its relevance to our modern lives? It's everywhere. It's that long, dragging, fed-up feeling even when you have a good job. It's the just-get-it-done attitude, counting down the hours to the weekend, only to then fill those precious days off with meaningless activities, hiding in aimless social media. Do you find yourself in that? You're stuck in procrastination not because you're lazy, but because you are unconsciously afraid. Afraid of failure. Afraid of being judged. Afraid of success. Do you feel like you are very important performing a role in a script written by someone else, attached to values that aren't yours? If so, you are not independent. And more importantly, that is not a sentence. It is a certificate. That is the powerful and often maximally misunderstood concept Carl Jung stepped into. Shadow work. Today, we won't just talk about it. We will carry out a shared explanation to find the real cause of the stuckness. In this comprehensive guide, we will go deep into the shadow, the part you yourself have ignored, and explore why working on it is the direct reason you feel you are wasting your life. More importantly, we will introduce the ultimate journey Carl Jung laid out, individuation. The goal of this video is very clear, to give you the map and the compass for transformation. To move from a repetitive, meaningless, passive life to a life where you actively take hold of your own story. We will explore how to turn constraints into stepping stones and transform fear into an ally. To grasp the power and urgency of shadow work, we have to turn back time to learn about the man who brought this concept into the light. Carl Jung. Born in 1875 in Switzerland, Carl Gustav Jung was not merely a psychiatrist. From the very beginning, he was an explorer of the inner cosmos, someone constantly haunted by big questions about meaning, spirituality, and the nature of reality. His intellectual journey was initially tied to his role as a student, and he was seen as the designated heir of Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. But at the very peak of this teacher-student relationship, a fateful fracture occurred. Freud, with his focus on repression and sexual desires as the core drivers of human behavior, could not satisfy Jung's broader vision. Jung felt that this approach, while immensely important, was still incomplete. He saw a deeper layer, a spiritual and symbolic dimension in the human mind that Freud's theory had overlooked. He could not accept that the full complexity of the human soul was simply the product of childhood conflicts. Personal experiences, especially his own dreams and visions, convinced him that a larger world existed beneath the surface of consciousness. Out of this profound academic and personal rupture, Carl Jung founded his own school, analytical psychology. Unlike Freud, who focused primarily on curing, Jung's vision was far more ambitious. He sought wholeness. He was a bridge-building thinker. He connected the analytical sciences of the West with the mystical traditions of the East. He studied modern psychology alongside ancient alchemy, mythology, and the world's religions. Jung believed all these systems were symbolic languages attempting to describe the same great journey of the human soul. The ultimate goal of his entire body of work was not to fix us, but to help us become our true selves. And the path to achieve that, to continually waste our lives, was the journey he called individuation. So what exactly is the individuation journey? The ultimate goal within Carl Jung's entire system of thought. If we had to distill it into a single idea, it would be this: the journey of becoming yourself, whole and undivided. It sounds simple, even hollow. Be yourself is advice we hear everywhere. But in Jung's universe, individuation isn't a feel-good social media slogan. It's a deep, complex, and often painful psychological process. It is a full-on commitment to self-discovery at the highest level. To understand why it matters so much, we have to recognize a hard truth. Most of us, as we grow up, aren't truly ourselves. We enter life like a unique seed, carrying a complete blueprint of potential within us. But from a very early age, we begin to learn how to adapt in order to survive. We learn that some behaviors are rewarded, loved, accepted, and others are punished, scolded, rejected. Family, school, culture, and society layer us with countless foreign overlays. We create what Jung calls the persona, the social mask. It's the good, acceptable version of us, designed to please parents, teachers, bosses, and society at large. This mask is necessary to function and transact. But the tragedy occurs when we wear that mask for so long that we forget the real face beneath it. We begin to believe we are the mask, and this is the very source of the feeling of wasting your life. That quiet, empty restlessness is the buried true self screaming at full volume, trying to tell you, this isn't you. You're living a borrowed life. Individuation, therefore, is a conscious process of peeling away those foreign influences. It is a process of discrimination, not elimination, but recognition, of which values are truly yours and which values you've borrowed from others, which are your core strengths and passions, and which paths you've chosen simply because that's what people expect. Here lies the pivotal and revolutionary point in Jung's thought. The goal of individuation is not perfection. It's authenticity and wholeness. Modern society is engineered around perfection. It wants us to be always positive, always successful, always beautiful, always correct. It encourages us to cut off, hide, or destroy anything ugly: anger, fear, weakness, caution. As a result, we become rigid. We live with only half of ourselves. Jung says that path is a dead end. You cannot achieve wholeness by cutting off half your being. Individuation is the opposite process. It's the wide-armed action of embracing all your parts. It requires you to go back, look at the parts you've accepted and the parts you've hidden in the dark, and welcome them back as valid. This is a journey that demands 3 extraordinary qualities, just as you noted in the outline. First is courage. It's the bravery to go against the crowd, to question the core beliefs you've held for a very long time. It's the courage to confront the truth that you may have lived through many years on autopilot. And most importantly, it's the courage to enter your own darkness and face the monsters you've long avoided, a theme we'll dive into right after this. Second is honesty, a radical honesty with yourself. It means cutting off every embellishment, every self-deception. When you feel procrastination, honesty requires you to ask, what am I actually afraid of? Instead of saying, I'm just lazy. And finally, consistency. Individuation is not a weekend course or a 5-step solution. This is the work of an entire person. It is a continuous process of self-completion with no final finish line. There will be steps forward and steps back. There will be moments when you feel more lost than when you began. But it is precisely within that persistent process that real transformation takes place. So, what does individuation have to do with the work of Stop Waste Your Life? The answer is, it's everything. Living a wasted life is the default state when you forgo this process. It's when you choose the persona mask and the unconscious drivers that run you. The phase of wasting life, therefore, is a conscious act. It is the decision to begin the individuation journey even when you don't yet know where it will lead. It is the decision to prioritize authenticity over approval and wholeness over perfection. But the moment you make that courageous decision, when you begin the action of peeling the layers, you will immediately hit the first and greatest obstacle. You will encounter the parts you've tried to hide your entire life. You will find the shadow. To carry out the action of this undertaking, let's try an allowed metaphor. Imagine you were born as a raw block of jade. Inside that stone is a one-of-a-kind statue, your true self, your potential. But as you grow up, the people around you, parents, teachers, society, pick up the chisel and hammer. They mean well. They try to carve you into a shape they consider beautiful or acceptable. Trim this part. Don't be so loud. Only doctors are truly prestigious. Emotions are weakness. Gradually, your block gets shaped according to others' wishes, and worse, you learn to pick up that chisel yourself and continue their work. You compress yourself, cut off the rough, ugly parts to crush yourself into a neat little box. Individuation is the moment you recognize this and bravely say, enough. It's the process of taking the chisel back from others, and more importantly, from your own unconscious habits. Your job now is not to pile on more clay to become perfect by some external standard. Your job is to courageously, carefully, and consistently chip away everything that is not you. The borrowed values, the foreign expectations, the programmed fears, so the beautiful, authentic statue that has always been there inside the stone becomes visible. This is a work of stripping away, not a work of layering on. Consider a very real example. A woman named Sarah. Her whole life, Sarah has been a go-along-to-get-along person. She avoids conflict at all costs. At work, she takes on extra tasks even when she's overloaded. In relationships, she never says no, always trying to please everyone. Her persona mask is the kind, lovable, never-a-problem person. But inside, Sarah feels exhausted, angry, and empty. She is wasting her life living for others. Sarah's individuation journey begins when she recognizes this. She starts doing self-discovery with honesty. She realizes that beneath the sweet mask, she has a lot of repressed anger. She has boundaries, but she has never allowed herself to express them because she fears rejection, fears being seen as selfish. That fear is precisely one of the foreign chunks of stone that needs to be removed. Her individuation journey is not about turning her into an aggressive, domineering person. It's about integrating anger in a healthy way. It's when, for the first time, she can say, "No, I can't take on this extra work," calmly and with firm resolve. It's when she can voice her needs in a relationship, even if that might create conflict. The first time she says no, she may feel afraid and guilty. But soon after, she finds a source of strength, a level of authenticity she never knew before. She is on the path to becoming whole. She has stopped wasting her life pleasing others and started living her own life. You may find this in your own life. Are you in a job, a relationship, or a lifestyle not because you chose it actively, but because you drifted into it, because it was what you were supposed to do? That feeling of being a passenger in your own life is the clearest sign that the calling of individuation is being ignored. But as we said, the very moment you decide to take back the wheel, when you begin chiseling away what isn't you, you will have to face exactly what you've tried to hide all your life. You will have to go into the dark, and that is precisely when we must face the second core concept and also the greatest formula, the shadow. The individuation journey we've just mapped out, the journey of chiseling away the foreign layers to return to the true self, is an extraordinarily noble calling. But the moment you accept that calling, the moment you lift the torch of consciousness and decide for the first time to go deep into your own mind, you will immediately face the gatekeeper. You will meet the largest, darkest, and also most powerful part you've spent your whole life avoiding. We arrive at Carl Jung's second core concept, and perhaps the most important, the shadow. So what is the shadow? Simply put, the shadow is the entirety of the parts of yourself that your conscious mind does not want to acknowledge. It is your dark side. It is the person you insist, "I am not like that." It's an invisible sack you carry on your back, and from a very young age, you learn to toss into it everything that society, your family, and even you yourself deemed unacceptable. This process starts very early. As a child, perhaps you expressed anger, and your parents said, "Children don't get angry." Poof, anger gets thrown into the shadow. You showed fear and were told, "Don't be weak." Poof, fear gets thrown into the shadow. You expressed selfishness, jealousy, laziness, inappropriate desires. All of it gets repressed, denied, locked in the basement of your mind. As Carl Jung himself wrote, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. And here is the biggest mistake most of us make. We believe that if we leave that basement shut long enough, the things inside will simply vanish. But they don't disappear. They accumulate. They ferment, and they look for a way out. Now, we must be very clear about this. The shadow is not synonymous with evil. It is simply what has been rejected. And this leads to an astonishing discovery. The shadow doesn't only contain bad things, fear, anger, envy. It also contains your unused power. Think about it. Perhaps as a child, you displayed soaring creativity and were told, "Be realistic, that won't make money." Poof, your artistic creativity gets thrown into the shadow. Maybe you demonstrated leadership ambition and got labeled bossy. Poof, your leadership ability gets thrown into the shadow. Perhaps you were too sensitive, too deep, and were called silly. Poof, your extraordinary sensitivity gets thrown into the shadow. This is called the golden shadow. It's the entirety of your brilliant potential, strength, and talents that you had to abandon in order to fit in. And now, we have a complete picture of why you feel like you're waste your life. Because when you do not integrate the shadow, both the dark part and the golden part, it will not rest. It will steer your life from the dark. It will lead to severe consequences. Self-sabotage. The shadow wants acknowledgement. If you don't proactively give it a seat at the table of consciousness, it will grab the wheel when you least expect it. You have an important goal, your conscious intention, yet you keep procrastinating. What is that? It could be the shadow, holding fear of failure or fear of success, secretly yanking the handbrake. You want a healthy relationship, but you unconsciously create danger or push people away. That is the shadow, holding fear of being hurt, venting your happiness. Projection and conflict. When you cannot accept any part of yourself, e.g., anger, you become extremely sensitive and irritated when you see it in others. Do controlling people drive you crazy? Perhaps your shadow is craving control. Do lazy people fill you with contempt? Perhaps your shadow is exhausted and starving for rest. We turn the outer world into a movie theater where we project our inner demons onto others, creating never-ending conflicts. Emptiness and soullessness. When your golden shadow, creativity, passion, strength is locked away, your life turns gray. You may be materially successful, but you feel like a fraud. You're living a safe life, but it lacks vitality, lacks fire. So what's the solution? It is precisely shadow work. Shadow work is a courageous, conscious, and profoundly deep process of descending into that basement. It is the journey of self-discovery in a radical way. It is not a war to destroy the shadow. You can't. Fighting it only makes it stronger. Instead, shadow work is an act of integration. It is the act of sitting down with the rejected parts and listening to them. You acknowledge your fear instead of pretending it doesn't exist. You learn to accept your anger as a signal rather than suppressing it. You allow yourself to be allowed to be weak. And when you do that, something remarkable is permitted to happen. When you integrate the shadow, you gain balance and agency. The vast energy you've been wasting to keep the shadow compressed is now released. Fear, when acknowledged, becomes prudence. Anger, when understood, becomes the drive to establish boundaries. And the golden shadow, when illuminated, becomes your wellspring of creative energy and limitless strength. You return to being whole. You are no longer a movable version that only half exists. You are a complete person, including both light and dark. This is the essence of individuation. This is the only way for you to truly stop wasting your life and begin living proactively and authentically. But how do we actually see our own shadow when it is defined as the very thing we cannot find? How do we recognize it in everyday life? We've defined the shadow as everything we leave out. But this raises a practical, definitive question. How can you find something whose very nature is that it does not want to be found? How can you see what's there within your blind spot of consciousness? Carl Jung's answer is profound. You cannot look directly at your own shadow, just as you cannot stare straight at the sun. Instead, you find its reflections. Your everyday life is a mirror, continually reflecting your shadow back to you. The problem is we're not taught how to read those reflections. We only learn to work around discomfort. Shadow work is the art of reading those mirrors. Let's look at the 3 most common mirrors. The mirror of projection, your triggers. This is the most common way to identify the shadow. Ask yourself an honest question. What is it in other people that drives you crazy? Not ordinary annoyance, but a deep, disproportionate irritation, a fierce emotional reaction. That is your shadow waving a red flag. Imagine a person named Mark. Mark is extremely humble, hardworking, and always works quietly. He despises colleagues he considers arrogant, showy, or always trying to take credit. There's one person in particular, Alex, who always speaks up in meetings and isn't shy about discussing his accomplishments. Mark finds Alex unbearable. Shadow work analysis. Instead of simply judging Alex, Jung would ask Mark to look inward. Why does this trigger him so intensely? Very likely, Mark's shadow contains exactly what he hates: a strong ambition, a desire for recognition, a wish to stand up for himself. But perhaps as a child, Mark was taught, humility is good, boasting is bad. So he threw all his ambition and confidence into the shadow in order to become a humble person. Now he can't stand seeing Alex live out, with ease, what he has denied in himself. Alex is the reflection of Mark's shadow. As long as Mark keeps rejecting that ambitious part of himself, he'll keep wasting energy being angry at Alex, and more importantly, he'll remain stuck in the quiet background role, never reaching his potential. The mirror of self-sabotage. Your procrastination. Let's return to procrastination. You have a big goal you long to pursue, e.g., write a book, start a new project. You know exactly what you need to do. But you don't do it. You find yourself cleaning the house, hiding on social media, doing everything except the important task. This isn't laziness. This is your shadow at work. Shadow work analysis. Your conscious mind says, do it. But your shadow, where the pain of fear of failure, or even fear of success, has been stashed, whispers, if you never start, you can never fail. This unconscious fear is stronger than your conscious intention. The shadow is protecting you from the risk of getting hurt by sabotaging your dreams. It's grabbed the wheel and is making you waste your life in a safe but suffocating loop. The mirror of admiration, the golden shadow. The shadow isn't only negative. Think of someone you admire deeply, almost to the point of reverence. Maybe they're wildly creative and self-directed, or a captivating public speaker. You look at them and think, amazing. I wish I could be like that, but I can't. I'm not that kind of person. Shadow work analysis. Carl Jung would say, you're projecting your golden shadow. That intense admiration is your overlooked potential calling you. You do have that capacity. You do have that magnetism. But at some point, you learned it was unsafe, impractical, or silly, and you threw it into your shadow. You're wasting your life by living as a diluted version of yourself, while all your gold is being projected onto someone else. In all three of these examples, the shadow is not the enemy. It is a messenger, a bringer of news. Your anger, your procrastination, and your admiration are all maps pointing you home, to your wholeness. But how did these shadows form in the first place? Where did they come from? To understand this, we must go even deeper into a concept larger than the personal mind. We've moved from the personal process of individuation, then gone deeper into the greatest obstacle on that path, the personal shadow. But this itself raises an even larger question, one that troubled Carl Jung himself. Why? Why do all of us have a shadow? Why do myths, legends, and dreams from completely separate cultures, thousands of miles and thousands of years apart, contain strangely recurring themes and characters? Why could a modern person in New York dream of primordial symbols like those found in ancient Egyptian scripts? Jung's answer to this debate is his most radical, most controversial, and also deepest idea. It is the third core concept we must understand, the collective unconscious. To grasp this, imagine your mind as an island. Your conscious mind is the land, the villages, the cities you can see on the island's surface. It's where you live every day, where you work, think, and make decisions. It is your ego. Right beneath the waterline surrounding your island lies the marshland you cannot see. This is the personal unconscious. It contains your own forgotten memories, repressed experiences, and your personal shadow, the monsters and treasures formed from your individual life. This is Freud's domain. But Jung dove deeper. He realized that beneath that personal water, your entire island is not floating alone. It is connected to the ocean floor, a vast, ancient psychological bedrock linking your island to every other island. That foundation is the collective unconscious. It is not yours. It does not hold your memories. It is a shared psychic inheritance of the whole human species. It is a repository containing the entire store of primal wisdom, experience, and fears our ancestors accumulated over millions of years of evolution. It is a control system, pre-installed in each of us at birth. And this collective unconscious does not speak in literal sentences. It communicates in the language of symbols, images, and primordial feelings. It expresses innate biological structures, universal psychological blueprints. Jung called these blueprints Jungian archetypes. If the collective unconscious is the operating system, then archetypes are the core programs, the pre-installed apps. They are our typical patterns of behavior and experience. They are the roles the human soul tends to play again and again in the grand novel of life. Your content has listed some of the most important patterns. The hero, the inborn instinct in us to face challenges, overcome danger, and triumph over darkness. The mentor, the instinct to seek and become wisdom, guidance, and truth. The trickster, the instinct to break rules, disrupt the status quo, and bring change, sometimes chaotically. And most importantly, the shadow. Your personal shadow, which we have discussed, is in essence your individualized expression of the universal dark archetype. This is why everyone has a shadow, because it is a foundational part of human psychological structure, just as the heart or lungs are foundational parts of the body. We collaborate with and are continuously guided by these ancient patterns, often without realizing it. We live inside them. Why does this matter for the way you are wasting your life with procrastination? Because very likely you are stuck between archetypes. Perhaps the hero archetype within you wants to start a new project, but the shadow archetype, in the form of fear of failure, is holding you back. Or perhaps you are living entirely under the value system of the innocent archetype, wanting only to be safe and refusing to face the harsh realities of the larger world. The disconnection we spoke of, the emptiness you feel, is the loss of contact with these archetypal sources of energy. You are not playing your proper role in your own life story. This is where the power of symbol reading comes into play. Your dreams, the myths you're drawn to, the characters in films you idolize, they are all messages. They are the language of the collective unconscious, trying to tell you where you are in your process and which archetype you need to activate next in order to move forward. Understanding this will completely change how you view your struggle. Your procrastination is no longer a shameful personal failure. It is part of the universal hero's quest. You are in the dark cave, facing the dragon, your shadow. And now the question becomes more urgent than ever. In a noisy modern world, why is listening to these ancient archetypes so important? We have established an enormous idea that beneath our personal minds lies a shared ocean of human intelligence, the collective unconscious, and it communicates through archetypes. This may sound grand and far away, but the truth is, you interact with these archetypes every day. You don't have to be a mythologist or a Jung scholar to find them. You just need to pay attention to the stories you consume. Myths, fairy tales, blockbuster films, the novels you can't put down. These are not mere entertainment. They are the modern laboratories of the archetypes. They are how the collective unconscious renews itself and speaks to us in a contemporary language. So how do we work with them in a practical way? Illustration of resonance. The story that's calling your name. Be honest. What kinds of stories pull you in? Do you constantly rave about tales of the rebel who stands up against an oppressive system? Or are you drawn to the caregiver who always sacrifices for others? Or, as we've said, are you being summoned by the hero's journey? This resonance is not random. It's a signal. The archetype you resonate with most is often the archetype trying to manifest in your life, or the archetype you've suppressed. Example: a man named David works a safe, stable accounting job that is unbearably dull. He feels he is wasting his life. In his free time, he devours fantasy novels and watches films about adventurers, people brave enough to leave everything behind and venture into the unknown. A conventional analysis would say, he's just escaping. A Jungian analysis would say, no. The hero and explorer archetypes within him are screaming for attention. His emptiness comes from living entirely as the innocent, refusing the call to adventure his soul is craving. He doesn't necessarily need to quit his job and summit Everest. But he must find ways to channel that hero energy into his life, perhaps by starting a bold side business, learning an entirely new skill, or finally pursuing a relationship he's been too afraid to explore. Illustration of the compass. Using archetypes to orient yourself. Once you've identified which archetype is speaking to you, you can use it as an inner compass. This is where we turn theory into a true tool for self-mastery. You don't just watch the story, you use it. Example. Suppose you're in an extremely tough phase at work. You feel blocked, undervalued, and ready to quit. This is a classic trial in the process. Instead of sinking into discouragement, actively consult your archetypal cabinet. You might ask, in this situation, what would the warrior archetype do? The answer might be, set clear boundaries, confront conflict directly, and fight for your value. Or, how would the sage archetype view this? The answer might be, step back, see this as a lesson, and seek a strategic solution instead of reacting impulsively. Or even, what would the trickster archetype do? The answer might be, find a creative, out-of-bounds move to flip the situation, or simply recognize the truth of it and free yourself from it. In this way, archetypes become inner advisors. They provide you with scripts, with the raw materials you need to fortify yourself and overcome current challenges. You stop being a passive victim of circumstances and become the active chooser of your role in the story. This is how you read symbols. Your dreams work the same way. A snake in a dream might symbolize betrayal, but it could also be the archetype of swift transformation and cyclical rebirth. Understanding and working with Jungian archetypes helps you realize your life is not a random, meaningless chain of events. You are living in a story. The only question is, do you recognize your role in it? In the midst of our modern world, a world engineered around surfaces, material images, and short-term achievements, this work becomes more important than ever. So how can we combine the great principles, individuation, shadow work, and Jungian archetypes, into the busy, noisy, high-pressure life of the 21st century? The answer is, we can't just know them, we must do them. Carl Jung's teachings have never been more urgent than they are today. We are living in an age of achievement and comparison. Social media has turned life into an endless stage, where each of us is managing our mask 24/7. We crop our image, hide our failures, and only display our wins. We chase external expectations, likes, views, promotions, at a frantic pace. The result? A modern epidemic of inner disconnection. We have more friends than ever but are lonelier than ever. We're busier than ever but feel emptier than ever. We are wasting our lives in a race after a definition of happiness we did not write. Sustainable happiness, as Jung pointed out, does not come from any one-size-fits-all formula. It comes from the work of understanding yourself and the courage to live in alignment with your own values. This is precisely the moment to use clean, practical actions. This journey of self-mastery and self-discovery does not begin with some grand outward gesture. It begins with an inner step, the decision to stop running and start listening. This is the time for ruthless honesty with yourself. You must pause and ask yourself directly, whose values am I living by? My parents', society's, or my own? What is truly missing in my life that I'm trying to fill with busyness? As you address this, you must learn to regard uncomfortable emotions, boredom, anger, procrastination, not as enemies, but as your most honest warning lights. Your restlessness isn't a nuisance. It isn't a defect. Emptiness isn't a failure. It's an invitation. It's pointing you to where you've drifted off course and inviting you to realign your direction. Once you decide to listen, you'll need a core practice toolkit. These are not vague theories. These are tools you can begin using today. Tool 1. Journaling, the mirror of the unconscious. The first and most foundational tool is writing, but not the "here's what I ate today" kind of journal. This is journaling as shadow work. Set aside time each day, ideally mornings or evenings, to dialogue with yourself on the page. Write down your real feelings, especially the ugly ones you usually avoid. Write about what angers you, the people who irritate you. Write about your fears and insecurities. Don't judge, just write. The page is the one safe space where your shadow can speak without fear. You'll be surprised to find recurring patterns, repeating symbols, and clarified truths beginning to surface. This is the first step in hearing the voice of the unconscious. Tool 2. Dream analysis. The language of the shadow. If journaling is listening to the whisper, then dream work is listening to the shout. For Jung, dreams are the royal road, the uncensored language of the collective unconscious and your personal shadow. Keep a notebook by your bed. Upon waking, before you touch your phone, write down anything you remember, images, objects, and most importantly, what you felt in the dream. Don't try to decode dreams mechanically with a dictionary. Ask, why is my mind showing me this image now? A recurring dream of being chased? That may be your shadow, a fear, a responsibility you're trying to outrun in waking life. A dream about losing teeth? That may be your persona, mask, feeling insecure, fear of losing your looks or your communicative power. Dreams are letters sent from your true self. Learn to read them. Tool 3. Hunting. Emotional surges, tracking triggers. This is a highly practical shadow work tool done in real life. We've talked about projection. Now it's time to reclaim it. When you feel triggered, a spike of emotion, a burst of anger or irritation with someone, treat it as an alarm bell. Instead of instantly blaming the other person, "He's so arrogant," pause and inspect the trigger. Ask, what part of me is being reflected here? Does his boldness tap into my disowned, reckless shadow? Or is it hitting my golden shadow, the ambition I haven't yet allowed myself to own? This ruthless honesty shifts you from a reactive character into an active inner scientist. You begin to see that what you hate in others often mirrors what you haven't resolved in yourself. As you integrate those parts, the triggers lose their power. This is how you begin to set healthy boundaries, not from anger but from self-understanding. Tool 4. Working with symbols and stories, using archetypes as a compass. Once you're familiar with observing the inner world, dreams, emotions, you can begin using the outer world as a map. As your content noted, choose your myth character on purpose. Look at the films, books, or myths you love. Which stories pull you in? Where are you on your own hero's journey? Are you in the refusal of the call, procrastinating and wasting your life? Or are you in the dark cave, facing your biggest trial? Use Jungian archetypes as advisors, as a compass for the energies you need. Facing a tough decision requiring backbone? Study and invite the warrior. Need a creative solution to a stuck problem? Explore the trickster or the creator. In this way, you actively draw on the collective unconscious to resource your journey. Tool 5. Alchemical thinking, growth mindset, and small actions. All these tools require consistency. Shadow work is hard. There will be days you don't want to do it. This is when we need the right mindset. Jung was fascinated by alchemy, seeing it as a perfect metaphor for psychology. Alchemy is the process of turning base metal into gold. For Jung, the lead is your shadow, your pain, your procrastination, the ways you're wasting your life. The gold is your individuated true self. So view hardships as the alchemical furnace. These trials aren't obstacles, they are materials. Your delay isn't the enemy, it's the lead to be transformed. This growth mindset helps you stop avoiding difficulties and start using them. And start small. Don't try to do all your shadow work on a single Sunday. Set small, safety-edge goals. Compound progress through micro wins. Today, simply write down one honest feeling. Tomorrow, just identify one trigger without acting out. Learn from the stumbles rather than avoiding them. The first step and urgency. What's most important? Urgency. Time waits for no one. I'll start when it's convenient, when I'm less busy, when I'm ready. These are the shadow's subtle scripts designed to keep you forever in the safe zone of delay. You don't need to understand everything to begin. You just need to begin. Start today with 15 to 30 minutes of conscious self-reflection. Turn off your phone, sit still, and just listen. If you want to go deeper, read the classics. Two excellent books to start with are Man and His Symbols, Jung's final accessible work, and The Undiscovered Self. And remember the core advice. You don't have to understand everything at once. Just let these ideas work on you. This journey is a life or death action. It's the difference between a drifting life and a life with a destination. It's how you stop wasting time and begin investing in your own life. Of course, listening to this whole practical toolkit can make you feel excited, but it's also very easy to feel overwhelmed. And this is when we have to be truly realistic in the face of the most minimal formulas, which are also the most practical rebuttal to this process. The challenge is this: shadow work and individuation are not quick fixes. In a world built on visible outcomes, we're always searching for a magic formula. We want a hack, an app, a 5-day course to fix procrastination and emptiness. But there is no such rule. No single journaling session can resolve the entire shadow you've accumulated over a lifetime. This is a lifetime endeavor. There will be days of major progress, and there will surely be days when you take steps backward. There will be times when the shadow seems to prevail, when you slip back into old habits or automatic reactions. And precisely at those moments that look like failure, we must apply the most important tool: self-compassion, kindness toward yourself. Real progress does not come from perfect effort. It comes from small, consistent effort, from continuing to show up every day, even if you felt like you failed yesterday. Some might argue that digging this deeply into the inner life leads to self-absorption. But Carl Jung's perspective is the opposite. Only when you face and accept your own darkness can you build healthy relationships and connections with the world, instead of continually exporting your unresolved issues onto others. Therefore, the greatest test is not the complexity of the theory, but the wisdom and kindness toward yourself required to pursue it. Through the journey of exploring Carl Jung's profound world, we have seen that the feeling of wasting your life is not a sentence. It is an invitation to stop running from yourself and begin the most reliable work there is: shadow work. We've learned that the ultimate goal, individuation, is not to become perfect, but to become whole. It is the journey of reclaiming agency, integrating the parts that have been ignored, both the darkness and the blazing gold, so you can truly take hold of your life's story. Please take one last second to envision that version of you, a version reconnected. Someone with clear direction, making decisions with calm authority, building deep, meaningful relationships, because they no longer live in fear or project their wounds onto others. This is not a fantasy. This place is waiting within you. Our time is finite, and the singular work of a lifetime is waiting to be done. As Carl Jung so beautifully summed up, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege does not come automatically. It demands your courage. It demands your honesty. And it requires your choice, starting today. The only question left is, will you claim it? So we've just traveled a deep journey to unpack Carl Jung. Shadow work. Stop wasting your life. The complete guide. At this point, you don't just know the concept. you truly understand the psychological roots behind your feelings. You have the map. You have clarity. But understanding is only 50% of the process. The remaining 50%, and the most important part, is action. A map becomes meaningless if you don't start walking. That's exactly why I've prepared the next video, also the most crucial part of this series. One rule that changes everything: control what you can. If you're ready to apply what you learned today to change your reality tomorrow, click the video now that's showing on the right side of your screen. And of course, if this inner exploration brought you value, don't forget to like. Especially, subscribe and turn on the bell right now. It's the only way you won't miss the next practical tools, and the best way to help you follow along and support the channel's continued growth. Please remember, this is a commitment, and your next step is right here.